Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I'm sorry if that blew out someone's eardrums when I first started that. This is a birthday bash. This show is essentially the birthday bash. It is my birthday. I apologize for being late. My camera just would not come on. But after playing around with the switch for a while, it eventually popped back on into the socket. This has been a long day. Not a bad day, just a long day. So, I have a few shows that I want to do. I'll go back later to cut the shows up. This probably is going to last for about an hour and a half to an hour. The entirety of it is going to be pushed to Patreon afterwards. I definitely have to find a way for people who give in other sites other than Patreon. Because it's not fair. So, there's that. But nevertheless, thank you for coming on to the show. Guys, the big thank you in the background is because I really do appreciate you guys allowed me to do a show. I don't do birthday bashes often, so I do want to get that out there before I do anything else. Thank you very much. I'm going to go through multiple segments. Oh, by the way, the person who's won the T-shirt has been notified. My wife, she's sending him an indication or a heads up to see whether or not he's okay with giving up the name. If he is, we'll announce that she'll come running in like she's giving me information that somebody has been bombed or something. So there's that. I think that's it. That's for the T-shirt drawing. But I think that's it. I have a few shows that the patrons chose, and I'll give a heads up on the ones where the patrons chose so you would know. But let's start. Some of this is going to be my own, some of this is going to be yours. But I figure together we have our own birthday bash. Everyone says happy birthday. Thank you. I appreciate it. Jamal, can you do a video on welfare reform? I have a video that I want to do on poverty. Yes. Or at the very least homelessness. I suppose all of that fits into the same thing. If you're talking about reform, welfare should work if we have it. This idea of reform, I don't like the language. The language is slippery. I don't know what that means. I'm just jumping in really quick and wish you a happy birthday. Thank you, Anna Maxa. Bob Ramirez, so when you file your income taxes, your occupation with the IRS is officially mendicant. I have no idea what that means. How old are you? I am 41 today. By the way, before I get started, and again, this is a patron appreciation show, so this show is just for us. Thank you. Now, the reason why I say thank you, I got letters in the mail. I was shocked as shit when my wife says, hey, go check it. And I open it up, and there's this I think was my first one from Marcus Conte. Thank you very much, Marcus. If I'm not mistaken, Marcus was running for office. I looked him up afterwards of like, who sent these things in the mail? Well, Marcus, thank you very much. I hope this can be seen. Marcus Conte of New York. The other one had to do with Bert Aline, and she sent me a Christmas card. Now, this is not a Christmas card. This is a letter that has a Christmas card around it. My wife was laughing. I said, this is the left. Who gives a shit? Christmas is made up anyway. What does it matter if it's on a Christmas card or any other card? Ultimately, the point of it is to get across what you're trying to communicate. The platform or the background to that, who cares? Sometimes it matters. In this case, it doesn't. Thank you very much, Bert. And thank you very much, Marcus. Both of these are totally appreciated and unexpected. But I did want to give a heads up as a thank you. There's one more that I hope the person is okay with me showing. And this one was early on. Shocked as shit is an understatement. That's an understatement. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. It's like he keeps those things. Yes, I keep those things nearby because I appreciate it. So let's start kicking some ass with the show. So the first one I want to do today, Aaron Mate. I have said and I will repeat it for those who have never heard me say it, that MMT is a buzzsaw. If you see him walking by, walk on by. You have a lot of people who haven't necessarily taken him up on that and have run into, like I said, a buzzsaw. Mehdi Hassan, one of them on Twitter, and there was one other gentleman that for the life of me right now, I can't remember his name, but he got eaten alive and I did the video on it. So there's that. So MMT is arriving, or maybe is at the same disposition as I am on Intercept. Meaning the Intercept needs to explain why there's a woman in prison right now for a document that's for the most part innocuous and spending hard time for this. Why is a woman in jail right now, locked in a cage for releasing information? That information wasn't even all that much of a bombshell, even though the Intercept put that thing out like it was a bombshell, and left her hanging. I mean, they released the document in a way that she could be traced, and within hours of them publishing that document, they had her locked up in custody. And what you find out is when the FBI talks about how they were able to do this, it's because the Intercept released so much information that they were able to confirm the location and the area of the document, because the Intercept essentially gave them the document, published, or gave them so much information from the document itself that they can identify who she was. She's going to be in a cage. The document that was released, I'm going to let Aaron Matei describe how utterly innocuous this is from the standpoint of the way governments interact or act on the world stage. B, it doesn't show what they say it shows, meaning they're trying to say that this is Russia hacking. This isn't nothing of the such. And C, the Intercept has to explain why there is a woman in a cage right now for releasing information to them. The Intercept can say, how dare the government lock somebody up that's a whistleblower. But you already know the government's behavior towards whistleblowers. You lived through the Obama era where they were putting people in prison for the Espionage Act. Why are you shocked as shit that the woman is sitting in prison right now if you fucked up royally? Now, the Intercept has never come out and addressed this directly. And when this question is put to Ryzen, the person who's the Russia hacked us conspiracy theorist on the Intercept staff, he sounds like a goddamn imbecile. He sounds like an imbecile. He may be pretty astute on other issues, but in this very specific issue, he is not fundamentally explained why there is a woman sitting in prison right now for releasing information that she thought would be a benefit to her country. Yes, the government is putting her in prison, but simultaneously, it is also the Intercept that bears responsibility for this, and they have not adequately addressed it. Aaron Matei has the same disposition and opinion. Listen to him talk about this, and listen to him talk about what they actually had on this. Meaning, this is not a smoking gun, this is not a bombshell, and nobody wants to think that somebody dropped the whistle for something and gets locked up for something that was irrelevant, but she dropped the whistle and got locked up for something that was irrelevant. It pains me to say it, but it is true. The Intercept. I don't give a shit if they're paying for her legal expenses. She shouldn't have legal expenses in the first place. Let's listen to Matei. I've grown to like Matei more and more. It's amazing. Let's keep going.
Of what the Intercept failed to do, and what they've failed to so far, I think, account for, aside for some vague statements. So they didn't remove some metadata, right, from the document in trying to, in their attempt to verify it with the NSA. And then they also didn't remove some yellow dots, some markings that identified where the document may have come from.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. And so you have all of this available for finding the source of the disclosure.
Right. Okay. And now, just to say, we've invited James Risen to come on The Real News to discuss this. Perhaps because the case has been ongoing, they've been silent. But I agree with you that it's a discussion that needs to be had. And I think also what has to be discussed is the nature of the document itself in terms of what it actually revealed, because I think it's been overblown and has been used as part of this effort to accuse Russia of a sweeping hacking interference operation, when I don't think the document itself shows that. Those accusations against Russia might be true, but I don't think the document itself substantiates really anything. But first, let me go to James Risen, because he has a different view. And this is what he said earlier on Democracy Now! Today.
I think it's a real good case for of press freedom, because what she did, or what she's alleged to have done, as I said earlier, is a public service. And it really was one of the few moments in the last year and a half where the American people got a clear warning that their election systems were being hacked by the Russians. It was no longer just a hack of the Democratic Committee's emails. This was a direct hack of the American election system. The Russians were attempting to change voting patterns by getting into voting machines. And the United States government had failed to adequately warn anyone that that was going on until this document was released.
So that's James.
By the way, if that was true, like if it was a situation where it was clear, unimpeachable, this is what the Russians were doing, that's one thing. But nobody has said that. I mean, the most hawkish person may use that language, but when you really get to the brass tacks, this guy's supposed to be a journalist. He's supposed to be the guy dealing with facts and this type of stuff. That's not what he's doing on this. He's adding stuff to it. I'm gonna let Matei do it. Matei is better at this.
Speaking to Democracy Now! Today, James Risen is Intercept senior correspondent. Kevin, I don't know how James Risen comes to this interpretation of the document. It doesn't have, in my opinion, it doesn't have any relation to what the document actually shows.
This is important. Matei is going to go through and explain the document that all of these people are saying shows Russia hacking or attempts at Russia hacking. He's going to explain the document that Risen just explained, meaning Risen gave his interpretation of that document. Matei is just going to go through the document and tell you what it says. Risen, he is a cold warrior, man. And I don't remember anybody else on that staff at the Intercept being this way, but he is a cold warrior. The horrible part about this is that it's likely that this woman has thrown her life away for something that was irrelevant. By the way, I consider her a whistleblower. So I don't care what the document she had that she was releasing. I care more so about the fact that she's being put into a cage. And I have to ask the question, why? The Intercept should answer that question of why, especially if they have any expectation of people giving them any other information from the standpoint of whistleblowing. They burned their source. Let Matei break this down. Damn.
And I hope to be able to discuss this with him here on the Real News. What the document actually shows is a spear phishing attempt, which is a pretty standard hacker operation where you basically impersonate someone and then send emails to people trying to get them to log in with their credentials, and then trying to use that to then possibly break into voting systems. The company that was targeted by this, VR Systems, says, in fact, that the impersonators were not even successful. So in terms of what Risen says there about hacking into voting systems, it doesn't even show that. And not only
my wife is saying some people have trouble hearing this. I've said it before. I don't control the volume in regards to other people's channels. I'm going to put this link at the bottom for you to see for yourself. But just to give you a heads up, Risen comes out, says that Russia tried to hack democracy itself, that they were trying to have this massive hacking opportunity or hacking attempt. And comes to this conclusion because of a document that was released by a source that the Intercept burned. The point that Matei is making is this is a spear phishing operation where they're trying to get people to go to dummy sites and try to pull their information. That is not the same thing as massive hacking into our infrastructure. I hope that's clear. What Risen is saying here is not shown in the document. His interpretation is unfounded in the document. Let's let him keep going.
Does it not even show that? But it doesn't even, the document itself, if you look at it, and this has been missed in a lot of the reporting, it doesn't even show any confirmed information that it was the Russian government or Russian military intelligence. In fact, it says the opposite. If you look at it, there is a legend in the bottom left, and there's a green line there, which means the green line means confirmed information. There's also a yellow line, which stands for analyst judgment. And if you look above that at the upper left, where they attribute this spearphishing attempt to the GRU, to the Russian GRU, the line is not green for confirmed information. The line is yellow for analyst judgment. So basically, this document that supposedly says the Russian military intelligence is responsible for spearphishing is not based on any confirmed information, as it explicitly says. It's based on one analyst judgment. That's something that The Intercept did not really highlight in its original piece and has not highlighted since. And the problem with that is that this document is really actually the only public evidence we have so far of any kind of Russian government hacking attempt. It was actually cited, or it mirrors and was probably relied on in Robert Mueller's indictment of Russian military officers. But because this document alleges that, and because The Intercept, I think, overhyped what it actually says, and because The Intercept has a reputation for being adversarial and doing serious national security journalism, I think it's helped spread this panic about Russia that, as this document shows, is not based on concrete evidence.
Yeah, he's right. He's absolutely right. I mean, it's one thing to look at the document and just read what the document says. It's another thing when you believe that Russia is at your shores trying to invade your country and take your women, and you're writing this stuff as if they're trying to take democracy down itself. You didn't have the goods. All of this. This is, I'm sorry, man, this is a mass delusion of sorts. With people who are incentivized to not care about the details. And you can make an argument that says I am incentivized to care about the details. That's fair enough. But let's acknowledge that I am incentivized to care about the details. Whereas maybe these others aren't. They hate Trump. I don't particularly like Trump. But fact is, I don't like the other party either. So I don't necessarily have a dog in this hunt in the way some of these people who are in the wool Democrats do. Not saying that Risen is, but clearly he has had a perspective of this that he has been looking for information to essentially propel. What Matei said here, Aaron Buzzsaw Matei, is right. Is right. That's why every time these people come on the show and they get embarrassed, this is kind of why. They don't have the goods. The people they usually talk to are people who already believe that Trump and Russia were in the tank together. The moment that you get to somebody who does it, like on a different fucking planet, and they're stuck in this situation of trying to prove something that they don't have the goods to prove. Even the document itself that got that woman locked up into prison. By the way, her going to prison makes it look as if that document is more of a bombshell than what that document is. She went to prison because she released information, not because of the information she released. Those are very different things, and I hope people understand the difference in those things. I don't think there's anything else with Matei, but one thing I do want to show that he kind of made a really good point about. People are assuming it's the Russians. But we've had credit card hackers and people who are looking to take information for ever since we've had the web. Why all of a sudden do we have this belief that this is just the Russians? You ever thought about that? Like, an analyst had an opinion that the Russians tried to do something, but how do you know it was the Russians? How do you know it just wasn't gangs or somebody else who was trying to make money and trying to make ends? They went with this idea that there was Russian lettering and everything else. Again, this has to do with the hack of the DSC at that point. This one is different, so let's separate those things. Risen overplayed his hand. I am very curious about whether Risen will take Matei up on his offer and join him on the Real News Network. I would love for him to join him on the Real News Network because, let's be very honest, the Intercept has some explaining to do. This is not, oops, I parked in an unmarked parking spot. This isn't, I accidentally took your shoes when we went to mosque for prayer. I'm not a Muslim. My ex was dating a guy who was Muslim, and he said, in one of the episodes, he was talking about going to prayer and coming back out and somebody had stolen his shoes. Like, just weird shit like that. I'm just like, this is not those issues that are minor. Somebody is going to be locked into a cage cell for several years of their life for doing what they consider to be God's work. And they trusted The Intercept that they would use that information to the best and protect them, meaning the source, not pay their legal bills, because the goal of it and the thought process wasn't that there would be legal bills, because the thought wasn't that you were going to burn your source. This is an awesome video to watch with this idea of how much information do you share to the intelligence services, and how much do you keep back? Because the fact is, if you share too much and they're able to ascertain who the source is, you've just burned your source. I would say that what The Intercept did was rather flagrant. Again, you can look at, the thing, I've done videos on this kind of releasing of information to these guys, and releasing it in this kind of flagrant way where they were able to narrow down who this person was. But understand that you do need to confirm the information. Aaron Matei gets into this thing of what's that degree of information? What's that sharing? How much of that do you do? This video is great. I'm going to put this at the bottom for you guys to see for yourself. Buzzsaw Aaron Matei asked the same question that I asked of The Intercept. You burn your source for something that wasn't even that big of a deal, and you overhyped it. There's maybe one more thing. I was hoping that what's his name gets mealy mouth. Rising gets mealy mouth when questions come up about what would you do different, and that mealy mouth is great, except that there's somebody sitting in his prison. So there's that. There's that. Let's go to the next one. Let's see who's here. Let's see if anybody has anything to say about this one. I don't know, guys. Russia did convince me there's racism in America. Google Simla's info. It took, Russia convinced me that too. Russia, I didn't believe it at all. I was born and raised in this country. I, would go down Monument Avenue all the time with Robert E. Lee and all of these other terrorists who tried to take down the U.S. government. I had no idea about the Klan and all that other stuff. It was only when Russia decided that they wanted to hack democracy itself that I realized that, holy shit, there's some racist people in America. There's some racist voters in America. Natural Progressive, happy birthday. Oh, thank you, man. It doesn't take Russia to prove racism. Cryptic Warrior, I know, that's his point, right? Oh, Cryptic Warrior, that's his point. Edward Klein, silence the definition of a hack or just half retard. Oh, God. Marsha Smith. Oh, thank you, Marsha. Thank you, Marsha. Kalita, in between 1.8 million other tweets. Don't have much to say about this, but I have a shitload to say about Richard. Beg the rich Wolf. All right, let's move to that one then, because Rob has some shit to say about Richard Wolff. I got to be honest, Bob. Between Richard Wolff and you, I lean more towards the side of Richard Wolff. We are in a capitalistic system. That capitalistic system has certain rules. Now, whether you want to say that, people misunderstand the rule set now that the gold standard has been eliminated, fair enough. But you must understand that a rule set is not real. A rule set is just a rule set by which you guys go by. That rule set can change, be tweaked, be updated, can be looked at in an incorrect manner. All those things can be true, but keep in mind, all of these things are figments of thought in the first place. The rule set can be whatever you want the rule set to be. If the world communities and the world governments decides, hey, we are off the gold standard, we can do whatever we want, then fair enough. But that's not what you have. You have people who use MMT purely to enrich themselves and put money in their pocket. And, I understand that people go with this idea of, the money isn't real per se. But from the standpoint of world governments and confidence and currencies and everything else, unless you have everybody else to agree with you, what you want to implement for MMT becomes difficult to do. Just saying. So I don't think Richard Wolff was wrong on this. But that said, Richard Wolff didn't say that MMT didn't exist. He didn't say that the concept was wrong. He didn't even go after it per se. His only point was deficits do matter, and those things from the standpoint of the world community would have to be paid back. Not so much that it doesn't exist. His argument, what you can make a case, his argument would be that it does exist and that they have been using it, and they've been using it to enrich the rich. This a conversation. I'm going to go to Wolfe in a moment. Came up about Cryptic Warrior. You brought this up about inflation. Inflation, and I love this because Richard Wolff even hits on this, which MMT even says that inflation more so. Well, it's not inflation; it's just kind of economics. But this idea that you don't really experience inflation until the money is chasing items. Let's say education for everybody. I'm going to open up and I'm going to say education for all. We're going to allow anybody who wants to go to school. That's great. And I love this because Richard, the cat from Real Progressives gave this argument, or not argument, but they gave this example. And I love the example, so I'm going to use the example. You need more books. You need more desks. You need more wood and chairs and all this other stuff. Because you've just said that anybody and their mama can go to school when they want to go to school. And you've just received a bump, maybe 20, 30% in the number of people who decided that they're going to go to school because they want to do something different, something new. Do you have enough books and chairs and teachers and desks and classrooms to handle and accommodate the number of people that has now decided that they wanted to go to school? And if you don't, then at that point your money is chasing ever narrowing number of slots. As your money chases those ever narrowing number of slots, the value of the slots go up. It would be like if you're in the desert, some guy had a container of water. They say, how much is the water? He says $1,000. You need it. You want it. Your money is chasing something, makes it more valuable, at least from a standpoint of human want. So the inflation thing has more to do with what your money is chasing. We've created trillions of extra dollars. So it's hard to get that across. The Fed has dropped trillions of dollars into the world economy, giving them money off to some of the other governments around the world, in addition to dropping in entire banks. We've made them magnificently wealthy at our expense. While we gave the banks all of this money, we allowed austerity to be implemented all across the world. The inflation thing is not really an issue unless what you're doing is creating a situation where there's not enough to go around for the money that's available. That's the first point with inflation. People always use this argument about inflation on the MMT front. I don't necessarily know if that argument pans out under normal circumstances. The argument has more to do with, if this is a thing that you can do, why haven't you used it up to this point? I guess the person can say, well, the argument hasn't been made full-throatedly up to this point, and you haven't had one of the major parties to actually take on this perspective. That's fair enough. Richard Wolff doesn't say it doesn't work. To the contrary, to the opposite. I mean, I think it seems like his only criticism, he may have others, but the one that he elucidates here has more to do with, you're going to have to pay the money back at some point. You got to pay the money back at some point. Let's take a listen. Richard Wolff on Tom Hartman. This is going to piss Rob off profoundly, but let's hear it.
The people need. So yes, it's been a phony issue all along, and so the Keynesians, the liberals in American politics, have usually come back and said, well, the deficit is a problem for a while, but it's an important problem to have because in the long run, we better spend the money that keeps our society together, that takes care of the people that the private sector neglects or forces to live below the poverty line, et cetera, and using government money for that, even if it's borrowed, is a worthwhile purpose and will, in the long run, be better for the economy than not doing it.
Well, and Keynes
usually like to point to the Great Depression as having been that kind of a situation.
Yeah, exactly. Keynes was also saying during times of economic slowdown, you raise the national debt to stimulate the economy. During times of rip-roaring prosperity, you pay down the national debt, right?
Exactly. My only quarrel, and I understand the technical issues of the modern monetary theory, they are quite right. Money is created by banks in the normal course of what they do. That, by the way, introduces as much instability, that fact, as it resolves. But I think they sometimes kind of go too far because, in fact, there's no way around it. If the government has to pay off massive debts, the way the government is going to have to do with the debts run up since the crash of 2008, it will, in fact, be pressing on people, individuals, and businesses to raise the money to pay back those loans. So for me, I always wonder in my mind, why is the government borrowing money? And here's the issue that I think people have to come to terms with. The government is right now borrowing at an enormous clip again.
Wait, before we go further on that, engage what he's saying. That's a fascinating point. So MMT goes with this idea that, yeah, you can spend what you need to spend in order to accommodate whatever your society needs. Meaning the point of government is to have I would argue, in my head, a decent society. You have people who need to have a life. Not need to, but people who would want to have a life. And if you as a collective are aware of your own situation, I think most will want to have a decent life. I would think most wouldn't necessarily want all their wealth to the top 1%, but they don't know how to do anything about it. So they just kind of go deal with their own affairs. But if you're kind of like me and you say, well, look, the point of government in some degree is we need to have a web. We need to have a decent society. Society needs to have a decent life. And yeah, the class contradictions from the Marxian point of view, but step away from the Marxian point of view, just from a functional point of view of the people who live in your society, don't you want to have a decent life as you go about your way through the course of your life and want the same for your kids and the generations successive? I think that's what most people just want. Now you have others who want more than that. They want more than their share. So fair enough, but just the average person, I think that's what they want. It is true that the government makes money out of thin air. The money isn't real. So yeah, if the government decides that it wants to spend what it needs to spend in order to make sure that let's say the job level is a particular thing, let's say unemployment, to make sure that it has enough resources to go around, it can do that. Richard Wolff is asking somewhat of a separate point. It's not dinging MMT. What he's asking is, why do you have to use it in the first place? Why are you spending all this money in the first place? If part of the reason that you have to borrow so much money is because you're not necessarily taxing the people who already have the cash. He's saying that there's been an end run. You've been had. This is, you've been bamboozled to some degree or run amok. How is a bank made? How's a bank made? So you have a bunch of people with huge amounts of money, and they put those huge amounts of sums of money together and essentially, use that money to go from point A to point B. But why is the government borrowing when the government can create? Now, engage his point here, because I think he has a good point. Why does the government want to go in debt to the degree that the government wants to go in debt when the government has a capacity, if it needs to tax, as opposed to create? Why do I have to borrow if I'm the government of the United States? That's his point. And we're in this weird situation where the rich, instead of a situation of taxing, you're using our society, you're using the streets, you're using the electricity, you're breathing the clean air, you're interacting with the person who's serving you your coffee, you are using this society, and because you're using the society, you need to pay for the society to which you use. So, why on earth is the government itself, who deal with these people who are magnificently well off in our particular society, why are they borrowing money from those people? Why? That's what he's asking. Why are you borrowing money in the first place? If you need a tax rate that's higher in order to accommodate your society, then you raise the taxes in order to accommodate the society. This bamboozling, where instead of raising the money through taxes or some other means, you borrow it. It's so the money that I'm saving as a top 1%er, I am now loaning back to you, as opposed to taxing you where I don't have to pay you that money back. There's a difference in those things. He's asking why. He's asking why. Now, I know the MMT crowd looks at this and says you don't have to get money from rich people and all this other stuff, but there are other reasons that you tax. Do you realize that the life expectancy, from the standpoint of income inequality, goes down? Meaning the difference in life between the person who's, let's say, at the top income bracket versus the person who's, let's say, at the bottom income bracket is like 15 years. Now, all the MMT in the world, especially if that gap has to do with the social strata or social stratification, where people acknowledge or understand, even on this kind of implicit level, that they are somehow on some scale lesser than, and having these kind of weird effects. And there are multiple studies that bear this out. It's not just one or two. then the premise is wrong. The stratification itself becomes a problem. The stratification itself becomes a problem. It's not as simple as let's just let the rich have all the cash and all the wealth and access to all of the resources. There's more to it.
But there is no mystery why it is doing that. It has to do with the fact that last December, this Trump Republican government gave business an unbelievable tax cut, thereby depriving the government of an enormous amount of revenue. At the same time, they spent a little bit more because they didn't dare not do that in the face of this enormous gift to corporations and wealthy people. And the only reason the government has to borrow is because it gave that enormous tax cut to these wealthy people and to these already richer than ever corporations. If they hadn't have done that, then they wouldn't need to expand the deficit now.
And just to back that up, Jeff Bezos has $150 billion. Jeff Bezos makes ungodly amounts of like you're talking about hundreds of $1 million within the course of a week. That is ungodly sum of money for any human being to have access to. And yet our society looks at that and says fair game. I don't think that's fair game to the least. Now, the reason that Jeff Bezos has that money is because Jeff Bezos essentially fucks over his workers. So Sanders has gotten to this point of saying these corporate welfare queens need to start paying their fair share, as opposed to having a situation where the government has to borrow all of this money because the top 1%, not even the 1%, the 0.1% gets a tax cut of like $1 trillion that's going to go in the backs of regular Americans. Some of us, the tax rate is even going up, meaning the lower part of the economic distribution scale. You have to, it's like this is a nonsense proposition. The idea that you're going to give somebody that already has massive amounts of money even more money is nonsense. Amazon pays no tax. Or at the very least, they paid no taxes. Jeff Bezos has $150-something billion. And the company that allowed Jeff Bezos to get that much money by essentially expropriating the wealth from the bottom section of the community and the society itself, that section, A, gets a shit position, a damn physically demanding position at that. So in addition to getting paid shit and piss, you have a horrendous working environment. And Jeff Bezos, good capitalist, maximizing his profit off the expense of the lower class. And the company and the vehicle, Amazon, paid no tax. Paid no taxes. He's a good capitalist. But the way that him being a good capitalist is essentially allows them to get over on us. The government itself has to pay the services, the safety net, for the money that Bezos is not paying his own employees. So the government needs to borrow to some degree because the government is not getting what the government needs. Now, an argument can be made that the government doesn't need to do that stuff. The government can just make money. That's true, but that's not the rule set that they're using. And that's not the rules that anybody's using, at least. You know what I mean? That's not the rule set. That's not something that everybody else is using. Everybody else is using a different rule set. All I'm saying is what he's saying is right. The government ends up in a situation of borrowing because you're allowing these people to essentially maximize their wealth off of our expense or not tax to the degree that you need to in order to keep your society intact. It's an end run. It's, hey, I'm not going to pay it in tax, but you can borrow it from me and pay me interest on it. It's a nonsense proposition government to have to do. Let's keep going because there's a little bit more to this. He rambles a little bit, but he eventually gets back to MMT. I don't mean ramble in a bad way. I just mean he deviates from the MMT thing, but he comes back to it.
Here comes the clincher. Ask yourself the question, from whom is the government going to borrow all of this money that it needs to borrow because it's not taxing corporations and the rich? And the answer to the question is the corporations and the rich. The irony here is that the government is borrowing money from the people who have that money to lend because the same government isn't taxing them anymore. In effect, what the government here did was to say to corporations and the rich, You don't have to pay taxes. Instead, we're going to get the money from you in a different way. We're going to borrow it. We're going to pay you interest for the time that we borrow it. And then X years from now, we're going to give it all back to you. There's no then surprise that corporations and the rich love this arrangement, love to talk about it as stabilizing this or that, actually make use of the modern monetary theorists, even though those tend to be more on the left than on the right of our political spectrum, because in effect, running a deficit this way is an enormous gift to corporations and the rich.
That's remarkable. I mean, I'm curious what you think about Ellen Brown's suggestion that the Constitution specifically gives, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the right to determine the value of money and to mint coins.
Oh, this is awesome. Okay, right. I forgot this was part of this video. All right, this is awesome. So, we've talked about, and I've had this conversation with Joe Firestone, the $1 trillion coin. Oh, I love this because I've never heard anyone ask him this question before, and I've been chomping at the bit. I didn't get the chance to ask him this question when I interviewed him. The $1 trillion coin. Can the President of the United States mint a coin and say this coin is platinum and this coin is now worth $1 trillion? Hey, $100 trillion. And instead of spending it into the economy, just put it in order to pay down the debt. It sounds like that answer is yes, but he dodges. But it sounds like that answer is yes. Let's keep going.
Coins, and that while the Federal Reserve prints our paper money, the coins in your pocket, the quarters, nickels, and dimes, are actually Treasury Department. They're actually U.S. government money. And the government gets to say that, that thing that you think is a quarter is worth $0.25, 25 cents. They could just as easily say it's worth $5,000 or $50,000. They can assign any value they want to it. And that the federal government could easily mint, say, 10 $1 trillion platinum coins, bring that $10 trillion into being by doing that, and then use that $10 trillion to redeem debt with the Fed, or redeem debt, I guess, with the Treasury Department, to pay off $10 trillion of the national debt. And the argument that she made of why this would not be inflationary or destructive to the country is that, for example, in 2008, the Fed created $27 trillion out of thin air and distributed it all over the world to billionaires and rich people. The quantitative easing has been something on the order of $6 or $7 trillion, I believe. You would know the numbers better than me, but it's been huge. And that these trillions of dollars going into the economy and coming back out of the economy are now, in this modern era, not that large a chunk of money that they're going to debase the currency. What do you think about that? Or is that just a wild out there theory?
No, it's not wild at all. It's a recognition of a very simple reality, which is you only have an inflation if there's an imbalance between the amount of money in circulation looking to buy things in relationship to the amount of things that are there looking to be sold. If you manage it properly, you can always control the quantity of money so that it has the relationship to the things people use money to buy that keeps prices of each item roughly stable over periods of time. The problem is, who's going to do that? And the only logical thing would be for the government, an entity that at least theoretically represents all of us and what we need as a community. The government ought to do it. But private banks don't want that. They don't want to lose the very lucrative situation they have that they can.
Just so we're clear, though, that's not a no. That's not a no. Like his answer, he just said, who's going to do it? Look, my point here is not that MMT is necessarily wrong. I have said before, money isn't real. You can come up with any rule set that you want, providing it's consistent within itself. And even here, like when he's pointed with this to Tom Hartman, these answers are not, no, this isn't right. This more so is, this is being used now in a way that's not necessarily in the best interest of the public. He's had Stephanie Kelton on this show, and he's interviewed Stephanie Kelton himself. So he's aware of this stuff. He knows what this stuff is. I don't think he's a novice on this, as much as I think some on the channel would say so. Now, I am going to bring in the audience, because I know that there are some strong MMTers here that is going to completely disagree with this. But that said, what do you disagree with? He's affirmed everything that you believe from MMT. He just disagrees with it. There's a difference in those things. Yeah, it exists, but it's being used in a bad way. No, but it exists. Yes, it's right. It's clearly correct. I mean, it's clearly one of those things that's real because it's being used now. So it's not an issue of whether it's real or not. The issue for Richard Wolff is that the way you want to go about it? That it seems to be one of strategy as opposed to reality. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see, Rob. All right, come on, Rob. I'm gonna let you call in. Do you have the number? Let me know if you have the number. Because if you have the number, go ahead, call in. Let me see if I have it on this one. I don't know if I have it on this one. In fact, I know I don't have it on this one. But you can call in if you remember the number, Rob. I'm looking for it now. Yeah, Rob. I don't know where the number is, my man. I mean, usually I have my All right. So let's try this. All right. All right, Rob. So the number is, there we are. There we are. Rob, what's going on?
Hey, Jamarl.
How's it going, man?
Hey, I'm not going to argue with you today. Just wanted to let you know. Another thing that we disagree on is probably disagree on. I'm a huge Cowboys fan, so Super Bowl all the way. And happy birthday, man.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. No, I want you to disagree with this. I mean, what am I missing on this? The Richard Wolff thing.
What?
What am I missing?
I've called him before.
Huh?
I'm Zorro.
Oh, you're Zorro. Your thing didn't come up. Your thing didn't show. Oh, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the birthday wish.
All right, take it easy, dude.
You say you're a Cowboys fan? We grew up being Redskins fans. That's funny. My mom was a huge Redskins fan. It's like we used to have in college, in school, like these rivalries between people who were like heavy Cowboys fans. And you look back and you're like, God, that was silly. It's like they weren't giving you any cash. They weren't paying for your school. And as much as these, people were involved in kind of loving these teams.
Well, they're actually robbing you blind if you live in one of those districts where there's a stadium.
You say, right, because some of the districts help pay for those stadiums, right?
Yeah, they're all publicly funded. Like Minnesota just spent like billions on their stadium.
Do they get their money back by any means?
They never get it back. It's the biggest scam ever. I mean, any type of project like that is basically corporate welfare.
Wow. Yeah, we used to have stadiums. They were talking about building one here, and people were massively against it. Like massively.
No, you don't want to do it. It's, the National Stadium, I think D.C. is one of the poorest per capita districts in the country, and they didn't make any money off of that for the baseball team. So,
Rob, you're not Rob. I mean, Zorro. No, thank you, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No. I was just saying thank you for the birthday wish. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Rob, call in, Rob. Because I know Rob has some serious feelings about what was being said. All right, so Rob, here's the number. 804. Well, I just put it in the chat. All right, let's see. Hello, is this Rob?
Yeah.
Rob, all right, there we are. All right, all right. It's funny. I had a 30-minute conversation later on. He's like, I'm not Rob. Like, what? What do you mean you're not Rob? All right, so you massively disagree with this. And I knew when Richard Wolff came up, I was like, Rob is going to disagree with this. Someone told me.
Oh, man.
All right, so what is it that you disagree with? Just so we're clear, he's a firm that it's real. That's the first point. He's a firm that is being used now. That's the second point. He's a firm that if the president wanted to, he can mint $1 trillion penny and put that penny in order to pay down the debt. He's a firm that corporations right now, as we speak, are essentially driving up the debt through this kind of corporate welfare and the way we're paying for stuff. So what is it? that you disagree with.
Okay. I disagree with his entire premise about money and how it even operates. Because number one, you want to know what the national debt is? I know you've had other MMTers on, but they're not explaining things so that the layman can understand these things to consume the information in the correct way. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
So in the cases, even when you had, I think Joe Firestone on, he got too technical. And, if you don't understand a lot of that stuff, you're going to be massively lost in what he was saying. So, first of all, the national debt. What is the national debt? The national debt is the sum total. Listen, the sum total of all dollars in circulation that have not been used to pay taxes. So, effectively, when you see that $21 trillion, that effectively is telling us what is the national assets to the non-government sector, which is you and I. So essentially they're saying there's $21 trillion floating around in the circulation between foreign governments, you and I, and private businesses and firms.
Okay.
The national debt has nothing to do with anything about, oh my God, we're gonna die if we provide Medicare for all for everybody. Number two.
I don't wait. I don't think he said that. I don't think he said, oh my God, we're gonna die if we don't provide Medicare for all.
No. I understand that, but he tries to make this seem like, oh my God, the national debt, we're gonna die. Oh my God.
He never said that. He never even came across that. The guy's a socialist. You think he cares about debts?
Okay. Did you not hear what he just said? He's over here talking about the government needs to go and borrow all this money, or go borrow money from
he's saying
people.
The government. Wait. Let's be very clear what Richard Wolff said. He said that the government is borrowing money from people, that the government doesn't have to do this. He's saying that the government shouldn't do this.
They don't, and they don't do it now. They don't do that at all.
You saying they don't borrow money now?
The government does not borrow money. How can the creator of the dollar, which is Congress, when they appropriate money for any spending that we do, how are they borrowing money from somebody if they are the creator of the dollar? Just like Tom Hartman said. He was 1,000% correct when he was saying that, what about Article 1, Section 8? That is 10,000% correct.
But Richard Wolff didn't disagree with him.
I know, because what the hell is an ignorant person like him going to say when that's the absolute fact? That is a fact.
Hey, Richard Wolff has 3 degrees going all the way up to a PhD. And I got to be honest, between anybody else listening to this, the guy with the PhD who's literally agreeing with what you're saying.
Okay.
I mean, so if he's an imbecile, you are too.
My premise here is not about what policy.
Wait. I want to be very clear on this. Richard Wolff never said, "Oh my God, the sky's falling." That's what you said. That's not what he said.
No, but what I'm saying.
And he never scaremongered about the debt either. That's not. I don't think anybody heard that.
Hold on. Let's slow down. What I mean is that he tries to make it seem like the national debt is this thing that we need to go and pay off. Well, if we paid off the national debt.
No, he didn't say that, Rob. This is what I mean. You don't know what you're talking about. If you watch the entirety of this video, in the beginning of the video, they even made point that you can't pay off the national debt because the country will go into a recession.
It'll go into a massive depression, not a recession.
Okay, but I guess my point is we acknowledge that that's not what he said. They even use the example of Andrew Jackson paying off the debt and bringing the country, if you want to say a depression. So are you going to apologize to Richard Wolff? You've attacked him for something that wasn't fair.
Hold on a second. Now, why
does Richard Wolff get an apology?
Jamarl, relax. Let me make my point. You keep interrupting me.
I'm interrupting you because you've attacked him pretty heavily here, and you've been saying stuff that wasn't true.
Well, how am I going to defend myself when I'm trying to make the statement here?
Go for it.
Right? All right. He is using this national debt nonsense as if it's something that needs to be paid off. True. Hold on. Before you interject.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word. I said a word.
No, it's like I already know. I already know when you're about to interject, and you're not listening anymore. All right. True. He's over here talking about, the government is borrowing money from rich people. Why does the government need to borrow money from rich people if the government is the creator of the dollar? Does that make any sense to you?
I know
create the dollar. Nobody else does. No China, no Brazil, no Russia, nobody. Nobody can create the dollar unless Congress writes a bill to appropriate money to spend on whatever it may be in the economy, no matter what it is.
Okay.
That's how it happened. So when they sit here and talk about how we're going to pay for it, and Richard Wolff and even Alexandria Cortez and Bernie Sanders are all over here saying, oh, we need to tax rich people. I never said we don't need to tax rich people. As an MMTer, I never said that we don't need to tax rich people. Absolutely. But we taxing those people because they have too much goddamn money, not because we need their money to pay for anything. Because if that were the case, why wasn't everybody screaming and yelling when they just dropped $800 billion on the military? I didn't hear anybody talking about how you were going to pay for it because Congress just appropriated the money. They told the Federal Reserve to put the money in the Treasury's general spending account, and they told their asses, you spend this money.
Now, you believe that Richard Wolff has said something different than what you just said?
He's over here, but the thing is that he's trying to make it seem like us on the left, we always have to sit here and figure out how we're going to pay for things or how we're going to find the money to pay for social programs. We don't need to be finding money to pay for shit.
Oh, look, Rob, I don't disagree.
We got to be the ones telling Congress, you spend on us, period. I don't want to hear this shit about we don't have the money. We have the money.
I don't think he said we didn't have the money. Like, this is what I mean. He's he's bringing up the debt because everybody else is going to bring up the debt.
Hold on. What I'm saying is that he's sitting here making it seem like we need to beg rich people through taxation in order to have these programs when we don't need that. All we need is all of us collectively as a society to be demanding, not begging, not asking, demanding Congress, you fucking spend on us right now.
Why haven't...
Not tomorrow. What?
Well, why haven't this worked up to this point, Rob? I mean, because look, let me be very clear, because I don't disagree with you on this. I don't disagree with you at all. I didn't disagree, not fully, with Firestone. And even Richard Wolff, the guy who you deride pretty heavily, I don't think would disagree with anything that you've just said. I think the disagreement would be on one of strategy, not necessarily on the reality of MMT. You understand that, right?
Okay. So you asked me the neo-lib questions of how you're going to pay for it.
How do you pay for it, Rob? I mean, Rob, I understand you want healthcare, Medicare, Social Security, all this stuff. You improvements in Social Security, infrastructure. You want to build a high-speed super rail. You want a flying car. Yep. How do you pay for all of this stuff, Rob?
By crediting the appropriate accounts at the central bank like we do for all federal spending.
Isn't that going to increase the deficit, Rob?
That's a good thing. It's private sector surplus. What are you crying about? You don't want the government to give us money through working or whatever our productive output will be?
Well, we want the money. If I'm playing devil's advocate, fair enough. I'll play this. Yeah. Well, Rob, I mean, come on. I mean, ultimately, yes, of course, I think anybody, even Republicans, will want people to work. The question is whether or not you can afford it, and the United States need to live within its budget. The debt is $20 trillion, Rob.
The government doesn't have a budget. The budget that the government actually has is the available real resources, not the dollar creation.
Then what is the $20 trillion? What is the
whole $20 trillion thing, ask Congress why they issue Treasury securities every time they deficit spend. So
nobody knows what you just said. Nobody knows. I guarantee you. Like, this is the problem with the conversation. If you're on CNN and you are talking about securities and all this, you realize that you've just lost that audience. They have no clue what you've just said. You needed more plain.
If they don't have any clue, why are they asking these questions?
Well, no, the media is asking the questions.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I'm giving you the correct answer.
I know, Rob, but when you started this, if you remember, you said Firestone and some other people who've been on the show hasn't given appropriate questions that can be easily digestible to the American public, and as such, they've essentially screwed up the conversation to some degree. Everybody gets it wrong, apparently, according to you. So I asked you questions that the media would definitely ask. They asked Ocasio, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? And you were bringing up debt securities.
Well, you're the one that asked me, so I'm the one answering. Why is Congress even issuing Treasury securities? I don't know why they're doing that. I can't answer why they're doing that, but they are.
I guess I'm trying to get you to understand something. You said that people were not explaining this in a way that was easily understandable. And immediately in asking you questions, you've gone into this technical jargon of debt securities.
Then ask me again. How am I going to pay for it?
How do you pay for it, Rob?
by congressional authorization.
We don't know what that means. What do you mean?
Congress
I know what that
passes
means.
bill.
I'm talking about from the
I'm
interviewer.
just telling you.
But the interviewer
Congress
says,
passes bill,
what does
and
that
then it
mean?
gets passed and then it gets spent.
So you're just going to tell Congress to do it?
Exactly.
Wow. And Congress is going to listen to you on this.
If I have like 10 million people,
Right there. Like that, but that's all. That's everything. Like everything boils down to if you have 10 million people. It has to be something else, right?
it has to be public pressure. That's the only way to get it done.
No, I agree with you.
That's what happened in the 30s.
And let me
That's what happened in the 60s.
And let me say something else. I don't
like.
like you attacking Richard Wolff, because Richard Wolff hasn't done anything wrong to you. And not just that, he doesn't. You have not even disagreed.
To try to beg. I just don't like that he has to sit here and make it sound like we need to be begging rich people for them to have their taxes deleted once the government receives them. You know that.
But what
know
he's
that by now.
But you understand that again, you're stuck into the situation where you're talking in a phone booth. Nobody knows what you're saying. Ultimately, when Richard Wolff is out here making his pitch, he has to make his pitch in a way that people get it. Otherwise, nobody's going to know what the hell Richard Wolff is talking about. And I suspect that part of the thing of MMT being in the doghouse as it is, not doghouse, but where people have no clue what it is that gap. Richard Wolff literally, wait. Richard Wolff literally sitting here on Tom Hartman just affirmed everything that you believe in. And despite him affirming everything that you believe in, you still get on this channel and attack him.
That's right, and I will keep doing it until they get it correct.
He has got it correct. Everything that he said was correct. Yes, everything that Richard Wolff said.
Why are we begging rich people? Why are we begging
But that's a strategic question, Rob. That's a strategic question on if that's something you want to do. What did he say that was wrong?
But don't you want to give Republicans to sign on?
What did he say that was wrong?
Not politicians.
What did he say that was wrong?
That the government has to sit here and borrow money from rich people.
He didn't say that.
We don't borrow money from them. Yes, he did. He just said that. Before I called in, you played the clip, and he says that the government is sitting here borrowing money.
You're saying wait. You're saying two different things. You don't even realize it. He never said that the government needs to borrow from rich people. He was making the argument that essentially that's the way things have been going. You understand that, right? Look at the clip again. You're getting it wrong.
So you're telling me that he did not just say, that the government is borrowing money.
The government is borrowing money because that's a flat fact. That's a flat fact. The government is literally borrowing money.
From who?
From various borrowing markets across the world.
No, it's not. They don't borrow money from nobody.
You're making you're wrong. You're completely wrong on this. The government is borrowing cash. Now, you can say that the government can create it. Wait. You can say the government can create it.
The government is not borrowing no money from anybody.
You're wrong.
Nobody.
You're wrong.
Nobody. Not even when we were on the gold standard.
You're wrong.
We weren't borrowing money.
You're wrong.
No, we're not.
You're wrong.
Prove it to me. How am I wrong? How is it that the government, that's the creator of the money, borrowing money?
Because you understand that just because you create something doesn't mean that you can't create these kind of weird ways in which you end up borrowing from somebody, even though you may have the capacity to pay back. The government, yes, the United States government can pay back whatever it wants.
Okay.
That's true. Wait. That's true. Wait. That's true because I'm explaining. You asked me a question. Wait. I'm going to end it on this because you asked me a question. I'm going to explain it. Just because the government can create all the currency that the government wants to create, the government tomorrow can create $1 trillion penny. Doesn't necessarily mean that it hasn't weirded its laws up in a way where it has to go through in order to borrow that money. You understand that, right? Just because you can create it doesn't mean that you don't borrow it.
I understood what you said. But
is that true?
How are we going to get the dollar in circulation first?
Wait. Is that true?
Congress? No, it's not true.
Okay. We just disagree.
Because Congress has to first spend money before we pay these taxes back, correct?
Yeah, Rob, but you still understand that even under that model that they still borrow.
Hold on. If you're borrowing, if anybody, rich people, corporations, firms, international governments, if they're going to buy treasuries, how do they purchase them?
Is the government in charge of the central bank?
With U.S. dollars.
Is the central bank a separate entity from the United States government?
I'm sorry?
Is the central bank a separate entity from the United States government?
No, it's not.
The central bank, the Fed, is a wing of the government.
Yes.
Okay, we disagree. Those bankers are separate. Don't get me wrong. You can pass a law. You can pass a law that forces them to do certain things, but as it is, they are an independent government. I mean, they're an independent.
Independent of what? What are they independent of?
Of the United States government.
Why are they? That makes no sense. That's
what are you talking about? Are you serious? Is that the argument that you're making? And you're calling Richard Wolff? You're making the argument that the Federal Reserve is a wing of the United States government?
Yes.
So when they created, when the central bank was created under Woodrow Wilson, you're saying that that's a wing of the government?
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to be clear. I just wanted to be very clear that that's what you were saying.
Here's the thing.
And we're going to end it on this because this is getting a little much.
Just to allay your fears.
That's not. I have no fears on this.
Hold on a second. If the Federal Reserve is so private and independent the way it is, then why don't they just give why did the banks go begging Congress for a bailout? Why did they go and ask them?
I know I understand that question.
If the Federal Reserve is so independent, they create the money. Why are they going to Congress? Why did the banks go to the Congress when they were crashing and begging them for a bailout? Why?
I don't understand that question, Rob. The banks went bust. The banks, as a private entity, went bust because they were fucking around in regards to this level of fraud. They ran out of. They went bust.
Why did they go beg Congress? Why did they go beg Congress?
I don't understand the question.
Why did they go to the Federal Reserve and have them credit their accounts just like that?
Yeah, I don't understand the question.
Okay. You're saying that the Federal Reserve is so independent, the way you're saying they create the money and all this stuff, right?
The Federal Reserve is an independent entity. The government make. Oh wait! You just said that's true. You spent the last 10 minutes saying it wasn't.
No. I said if that is true, then why didn't the banks go straight to the Federal Reserve, cut the middleman out, and the middleman here is the government, and just have them have their accounts credited, and then they zero out all their negative balances. Why didn't they just go straight to the Federal Reserve?
Rob, I do a YouTube channel. In order to do that YouTube channel, I have to buy equipment and everything else. There's things that I buy using the currency itself to buy. So I, use spend dollars and everything else. I'm an independent entity of the government of the United States, while at the same token still using money from the government of the United States. If you owned a cake shop and you were baking cakes, people who would come in would spend money for those cakes. You would spend money in order to buy stuff in order to make your cakes. You're still an independent entity from the government itself.
Where did you get the money to spend to buy
So the cake shop is part of the government also.
Okay.
I'm asking, is the cake shop part of the government?
No, that's a private sector endeavor. That has nothing to do with the government.
But I'm making a point to you, Rob, that those banks are also private.
Yeah, so?
It's not an argument to say that just because they went bust, they need to get dollars or money from the bank. Anybody can go bust, including a bank. That doesn't mean that they're a wing of the government.
Okay. So what's your point?
My point is that just because they're spending dollars and they need dollars, it doesn't make them a wing of the government of the United States.
Yeah, but you have to understand the delineation between a private bank and the Federal Reserve, which is our central bank.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I look, I understand that it's under. I agree with you that Congress can do whatever it wants to the Federal Reserve, but Congress hasn't. Okay. I mean, the Federal Reserve is not. All right, I'm not going to keep going back and forth. I'll end it at this. I appreciate you calling in, Rob, and I think people got a clear idea of the positions of people involved. Don't attack Richard Wolff on my program. Flat out.
Or
flat fact. Flat. Just don't. Because you don't have any grounds. I between the two of you, I would lend 1,000% more credibility to him. So this idea that you're going to come on and attack the guy, he hasn't done shit to you. So why are you attacking him?
I'm attacking him because he's incorrect.
But that's a nonsense proposition. What you're saying is nonsense. I'm not necessarily saying that MMT and what you're saying is necessarily as a flat fact wrong. I'm saying that your premise to attack him is nonsense. He's done nothing to you. I don't like what he's saying from a strategic point of view, so I'm just going to be belligerent to attack. He hasn't stolen money from you. He hasn't fucked you over. He's not out here talking about what you're saying is nonsense. He literally went on Tom Hartman and agreed with everything that you had to say, and the best thing that you can come on here to do was to attack him after he did it. I'm saying that's fucked up. That's what I'm saying.
If you're going to be sitting here begging rich people,
I'm saying it's fucked
up. We don't need rich people.
All right, Rob. You have a good night, Rob. You have a good day. I think everybody got a clear idea on you. That's all I'm saying. And I got to be honest, I don't think it's the perspective that you want people to have. Just you have a bunch of people looking at the things that you're saying. So yeah, there's that. Let's see. All right, so the other one I wanted to do had to do with a story that one of the patrons came up with, actually, dealing with this. Let's see. All right. So, oh shit, this is the wrong one. So this is the Endangered Species Act. Now, I gotta be honest, I didn't know much about this because I don't fully pay attention to, well, actually, that's not true. There's certain channels that I watch, and I do environmental news, but I gotta be honest, people don't tend to watch environmental stuff. I don't know if it's because they look at it as I can't do anything about it. I don't know if they look at it as you already had me at hello, and because you had me at hello, this is not necessarily something I want to engage in. And so I don't do a huge number of those. I do them sporadically because I want people to know what's taking place, even if they have me at hello. Meaning, even if they agree that this is something that needs to be done and everything else, I still try to do it periodically. One of my patrons on this, and let me get her name so you guys will know who the person is. Oh, by the way, while I'm thinking about this and while we're in an intermission, there were two, the link above, it's hard to see it. There's a link in the description box if you want to contribute. Super Chat is off. Today is the day that I can reapply on my birthday. That's so bizarre. And the link below allows you to donate. So this is going to be Warp Drive. I'm Jamal, and this is going to be so fast that the Galactic Federation will think this is Warp Drive. The show is Warp Drive. That's hilarious. Shauna, I wish I could send more. Great work. Oh, Shauna, you don't have to send anything. I appreciate you telling me great work. All right, so let's talk about the where is it? I'll be reapplying either today or tomorrow. But I gotta be honest, I don't, even if they turn back on Super Chat, I don't know if I'm going to continue to use it. The one at the bottom, the link in the description box, takes less for the first part. And it goes through PayPal as opposed to going through Google, who at this point I'm not quite sure I won't having anything from me at all. So the Trump administration wants to roll back the Endangered Species Act. And the wild part about this is our national eagle has benefited from this National Species Act. Let me show you what I mean. This has been in effect, well, I'll just read it. It's been in effect 45 years. Oh, by the way, one last thing about the other thing. Tom Hartman is not completely... Look, I think Tom Hartman is a Democrat. I think Tom Hartman, his political identity or his ideology is far to the left, even though he's associated himself with the Democratic Party. So just that. I don't take any episode that Tom Hartman does as just the episode unto itself. If he's talking about this, he's talking about it for a reason. I think there is a full court press to get people back into the Democratic Party. I think that takes place on Young Turks. I think that's taking place from the standpoint of media like CNN, MSNBC. I think all of them have garnered or gathered around this idea of get people back into the party. And doing that, you look at Hartman, and I would imagine Hartman knows that a lot of lefties watch Hartman. And in having a lot of lefties watch Hartman, Hartman just so happens brings up the MMT thing. Is Hartman bringing up the MMT thing because he wants more attention to be given to, let's say, hitting it in the knees, or from the standpoint of his party to bring on some of the attributes? And I gotta be honest, I don't know which one it was. That interview to me seemed completely innocuous, while at the same token getting across the reality of it. Just using them. Not necessarily the best of ways. All right, so Trump administration wants to roll back the Endangered Species Act. These 10 animals will be affected without it. Since it was passed 45 years ago, the Endangered Species Act has protected thousands of plants and animals that humans have pushed from their habitats, driven close to extinction. Today, there are more than 2,300 plants and animals that are protected status in the United States and abroad, with the Louisiana pine snake becoming the most recent addition in May. But last week, President Trump's Interior Department proposed big changes to the ESA, part of the administration's sweeping rollback of what some view as burdensome regulatory red tape. The changes could end the practice of automatically providing future threatened species with the same protections endangered species receive, with new protections for threatened plants and animals instead determined by the species' individual conservation needs. What? Let me read that again. That sounds weird. The changes could end the practice of automatically providing future threatened species with the same protections endangered species receive. Oh, I see. With new protections for threatened plants and animals instead determined by the species' individual conservation needs. Essentially, it's not an absolute anymore. It's specific. And if implemented, the proposed changes would allow officials to consider the economic impact of protecting a species when enforcing the ESA. Think about that. If I dump this into the water, all the bald eagles would die. But how much would it cost if I don't? The idea that you deal with this idea of how much is this going to cost in a monetary way, we were talking about killing or ending a species. God, that's horrendous. God, that sucks. There are real things and there are unreal things. And I say that all the time because it's true. The ground that you're walking on is a real thing. The planet is a real thing. Other human beings are real things. If we got hit by an asteroid, that would be a real thing. The electromagnetic field around the planet is a real thing. Your dollars are not. Your dollars are not. An idea that this unreal thing will hold any sway whatsoever over something as real as an animal habitat, and for that matter, our own habitat, gets across the problem with our society and our world. This is a cultural issue. This is not just a few bad apples. This is a cultural issue. Let's just keep going because this is fucking horrendous. The bald eagle. Oh, right here. Republican lawmakers are aimed to curb the reach of the ESA for years, claiming that it hurts businesses, mining, drilling, and logging. Well, if you're trying to... But in 4 decades plus it has been enacted, the law has kept dozens of iconic species from being wiped off the face of the earth. Here's 10 animals that might not be here today with the Endangered Species Act. And just to put a fine point on it, we're in a mass extinction as is. Do you know that 50% of the species on the planet have gone extinct? 50% of the species in the last 50 years have gone extinct. Just so I can fact check myself on this, I pulled this up before. Maybe it's 40% species. I've done this story before. Right here. Earth has lost half of its wildlife over the past 40 years. Number of wild animals on Earth has halved in the past 40 years, according to the new analysis. Creatures across land, rivers, and seas are being decimated as humans kill them for food in unsustainable numbers while polluting or destroying their habitats. The research by scientists at WWF and Zoological Society of London found. If half the animals died in London Zoo next week, it would be the front page news, said Professor Ken Norris, ZSL's Director of Science, but that is happening with great outdoors. This damage is not inevitable, but the consequence in the way in which we choose to live. Like I said, it's cultural. He said nature, which provides food and clean water and air, was essential for human well-being. And again, this isn't by God. This is by us, by choice to some degree. So let's go back to this for a moment. Putting a pin in that part. Our national bird. Republicans are trying to kill the bald eagle. You know what's funny about it, though? Do you know what the national bird might have been instead of the bald eagle? A turkey. It might have been a turkey. Some of the founding fathers didn't necessarily like the bald eagle. Some of them actually did like the turkey. And there are some notes of them talking about that the turkey is the national bird as opposed to the bald eagle, putting a knife in the bald eagle. It's fascinating. All right, so bald eagle. Removed from the threatened endangered species list in 2007. Estimated population 70,000, including Alaska and Canada, found in the lower 48 states and Canada. Essentially, if it wasn't for putting them on endangered species list, it's possible that we might not have any bald eagles today. Alligators. Threatened due to similarity of appearance to other rare species. Coastal areas of southwestern United States. The close relatives of the dinosaur were nearly hunted to extinction before they received protection in 1967 under the precursor to the ESA. This, combined with the broad trade regulations placed on alligator products, allowed populations to rebound, and in 1979 were downgraded from endangered to threatened. Today, despite facing habitat loss, alligators are common in coastal wetlands from Texas to North Carolina and regularly appear in viral videos with them interrupting unexpected golfers. The grizzly bear. Estimated population 1,800, that's it. In the lower 48 states, 31,000 in Alaska plus 1,000 more in Canada. Found in isolated parts of American West, Alaska, and Canada, grizzly bears were classified as threatened in 1975 when about 800 to 1,000 were thought to be left in the lower 48 states. Since then, the grizzly population has rebounded to 1,800. In 2017, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services made the controversial decision to delist grizzlies living in Yellowstone National Park, where the bear population has grown to about 136 in 1975 to an estimated 700 today. American peregrine falcon. Removed from the threatened list in 1999. Sea otter. Humpback whale. Oh yeah, I remember this one. Endangered in certain parts of their range. 22,000 in the North Pacific, 11,000 in western North Atlantic, found in nearly all oceans. Decades of commercial whaling decimated humpback populations around the globe, driving the population in North Pacific from a high of 125,000 to just 1,200 in 1960. Wow. Humpbacks were first classified as endangered in the 1970s and still carry the protections today, despite being remarkably resurgent. Capitalism doesn't care. I mean, early on, Republicans saying this hurts our jobs. Yeah, it hurts your jobs because you can't kill these animals. If I can't kill humpback whales, you're hurting my humpback whale killing business. Is that a business that you actually want people to have? Green sea turtles. Less than 200,000 globally. The gray wolf. Between 7,000 and 11,000 in Alaska, 3,700 in Great Lakes region. I guess the point is, all of these animals, Florida manatee. Let me guess, he's in Florida? Current status threatened. Yeah, he's in Florida. Who knew? Southern U.S. California condor. Let me guess, he's in California. Southern and Central California. God damn it, I am on the ball. There are only 22 California condors remaining in 1982 when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service began an urgent and controversial captive breeding program. Later, as the numbers in the wild shrank to just 9, making the California condor one of the rarest birds on Earth, the agency decided to bring all remaining condors into captivity. They were so concerned that these things were going to be destroyed. Look, I would imagine, I don't know what people can do about this, if I'm being honest, but just be aware that this is what's going on. They're talking about delisting many of these animals that wouldn't have been here. Oh, I'm sorry, they're talking about destroying this, or at the very least undermining this. And many of these animals wouldn't be here today if we did. So, I don't know what to do about it, but be aware. Be aware. Let's see. Open comment period right now. You can comment. Oh, I see. Natural Progressive. All right, so this is an open comment period. Good. Thank you, Natural Progressive. Apparently, there's an open comment period where you can give your comments to. I gotta be honest. IG Pie, and I don't mean to say this to say don't do anything. It's just that if you do something, let it be effective. If you remember, Pie opened up the comments for people to comment on not wanting to get rid of net neutrality. It didn't matter that people didn't want him to do it. He did it anyway. So I don't necessarily know. Pickle BS, what are you talking about? There's a birthday Chippendale stripper due to your house shortly, JT. Is there now? Is there now? Well, let me hurry this up so I can get to that. Oh, Chippendale, you're talking about guys. Oh, God. You're talking about for my wife. Endangered Democrats. I see the act didn't cover endangered political species like FDR Democrats. I can only hope it doesn't protect corporate candidates from our single Green's party. Our single Green party. Our single Green party. I love that. Endangered political species. I don't know. I'm assuming it's you, Belt. Is it possible that there's going to be a resurgence to reinsole the Democratic Party? I'm doubtful, but you have some people who are fighting hard. And like I said, you've had one or two unexpected wins, but is that the same thing as actually changing the party? I don't know. I don't know. Let's see who's here. Garnome, yes, this is important, and I think JT's BD worth giving him the time. BD. Well, I think the conversation is important, yeah. Let's see. Thank you. No, this is a serious message for Jamarl. What's the message for me? Can you imagine what our kids will miss out with this act? It's possible you wouldn't have had a bald eagle. Think about that. But isn't there something a little bit more to it as opposed to this act? I mean, ultimately, you're talking about creating a law that says you can't kill birds, as opposed to why do you have a society that thinks killing birds for profit is okay in the first place? I guess I think of this stuff as a cultural thing, not necessarily just an individual law thing, even though, yeah, you have to take certain steps, tactical, to protect certain things. Your system doesn't value anything. I mean, this is life that these things are killing and eradicating, and is doing it for the sake of profit. That is a damning indictment. I mean, yes, these animals are alive today, but what animals won't be alive today when you get rid of this? Yeah, I agree with you, Natural Progressive. I agree with you. Ms. Mrizzy Dizzy, I wish you good fortune many times, many ways. Happy Merry Christmas to you. That's hilarious. Oh, Guard Gnome sent you a birthday vid. Oh, I'll check it out. That's hilarious. Jamarl, play the birthday vid I made for you. It concerns the future of the channel. All right, let's find the birthday vid the Guard Gnome sent. Where did you send it, Guard? Did you send it via email or Twitter? Let's see this. Birthday vid. All right, I got a birthday vid. Luna said it's going to be a Chippendale dancer. Garden, you better have your clothes on, buddy. If my channel gets shut down because you're showing... Oh, God. All right, let's play it. Let's play it.
Happy birthday to you. Happy.
There are two of these. Hold on, Garden. I'm not finding yours, Garden. I see one from my mother-in-law. I don't see one from you. Let's see. I don't see it. I don't know where it is. I'm looking for it. Hold on. Let me try Twitter. All right, let me go to Garnome's YouTube channel. I'm sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I got a birthday wish from my mother-in-law on YouTube, and I thought that was it. I thought they were fucking around. All right, let me subscribe to this. BD message for JT. Here we are. Let's see what's going on. I'll play it in this one.
Happy birthday to Jamarl Thomas. But unfortunately, it's time for some tough love. How do I put this? There's really no way to pull the punch. So I'm just going to say it straight up. Dude, you're 41 years old and Progressive Voice has like just gotten out of high school or something. You know, don't you find it a bit absurd that you idolize that kid like this? I mean, are your patrons aware that, you know, not only are you giving all the donations that are sent to you to him, but you're paying an additional 20 cents on every dollar? I mean, why is that? I know he's beat you up a couple of times and, you know, he's threatened to take your wife and all this other stuff, but, you know, you're 41 years old.
You know, he's going to be looking for you, guys. He's going to be looking for you. He's going to be stalking that channel. He's going to be waiting. Progressive Voice is going to be in the weeds. Every time you get into your Carter, you're going to hear like a twig break, and you're going to be... You're not going to know if Progressive Voice is going to look for you. Let's keep going. This is fucking awesome. There's another minute of this. Let's keep going.
It's time to step up. I mean, it's getting stupid. All these posters that you've got all over your walls of this kid, and, you know, the constant harassment, the constant calls. And he complains about it on his channel, man.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
It's far, far too much. It's completely unreasonable. You know, you need to grow up. Quit calling this kid your dad or your elder brother or whatever the hell you've been calling him. Quit giving him your money. And, you know, I know you're thinking about changing the name of your channel to Progressive Voice 2 or trying to incorporate Progressive Voice into the title.
Progressive Voice Light or something.
And I would just suggest that you don't do that. You know, you've built up your own brand name. I know you think of it as Progressive Voice's brand name, but it isn't, dude. It's yours. Anyways, I hope you have a good birthday, man. And I hope you take some of what I've said to heart.
I'm going to take all of it to heart, man. I'm going to take all of it to heart. First, I'm going to agree with you that changing the name of the channel is probably not a good idea, so fair enough. I can't believe you told my secret that he's taking all of my cash. That it wasn't YouTube, that it was Progressive Voice that took that money. That's fucked up that you told everyone that. And I'm totally joking. That's fucking hilarious. Thank you for the birthday wish, man. Thank you for the birthday wish. You said no sound? What do you mean no sound? There was sound. Wait. You said there was no sound. There was sound. Let's see. Make sure we can see it again. Right here. You say you could? Okay. I heard someone say no sound. I was like, what? What do you mean no sound? Marshall Village. 41 Jamal looks damn young. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I try. What did it say? Black don't crack. Black don't crack. Let's see. Let's do one more. All right. So I'm putting these. I want to put these on Patreon, and these are going to only be available for my. Let's take a look at this. One of my subscribers. Nah, I can't do this. I need to think about this one. What I will do is this one though. You know, all that money that Donald Trump took from the standpoint of a tax break, and even trying to find ways to give his benefactors even that much more. One of the wild parts that I don't quite understand why his supporters will be okay with this but maybe he doesn't care, is this. Trump cancels pay raise for almost 2 million federal workers. Think about that. Like all of these people busting their ass every day to go to work and everything else. And whether they're Trump supporters or not, many of these people voted for Trump. Many of these people have been on the lines for Trump, meaning even ICE agents are included into this, meaning even the organization that he's used as a Gestapo force, Trump cancels the pay raise. Now, to be fair, Obama also had froze rates. The interesting part to this is that Politico is sympathetic to Obama doing it. I thought that part was funny because they say that we were in an economic crisis and he didn't have a choice but to freeze wages. But the federal government right now, or at the very least the economy is supposedly rip-roaring. And so this idea of not giving them the pay raise, it comes across as being, to put in a politically correct way, fucked up. It comes across as fucked up. This is on top of Trump giving his cronies trillions of dollars in tax cuts. This comes on top of the president trying to cut healthcare, like literally gut healthcare, Obamacare, for millions of human beings. There would have been millions, like 20 million people that wouldn't have been able to access healthcare or would have lost healthcare under what Donald Trump wanted to do for Trump care. But on this, it's like, so as being completely obsequious to the rich after running the campaign where he said he was going to raise his own taxes, now he turns around and hit federal workers. I would suppose, again, I think these things are issues of class. So him hitting federal workers is not a shock to me. More so, I guess it comes down this line of me presenting this to try to ask his own supporters, why are you okay with this? The Republican Party goes and says that they can't raise the debt limit. They can't do it. We're stuck. We can't do it. I'm going to bleed on the flag before I raise this one red cent. The moment that Trump got elected, they increased it by $9 trillion. It was nonsense. It was shit that they were making up for political fodder. Now, I say that Democrats do the same thing with the poor, but in this case, we're talking about Republicans, and we're talking about something that's completely egregious. Trillions of dollars in tax cuts to people who don't need it, don't even know that the money is in their bank account, and is anything, it's probably just another digit that they wouldn't even be able to use in the first place. Compared to people living in areas of squalor and not having access to their needs met. Jeff Bezos has $150 billion. And yeah, I know he's a person I like to go to for this, but he makes that point beautifully. Jeff Bezos had $150 billion, while this is America. This is not a refugee camp. This is not in Syria. This is not in Libya. This is not people fleeing the Dominican Republic or Nicaragua. This is not people trying to get on the boat and leave Haiti. These are not people camped out on the border of Turkey because they're trying to flee a war zone. This is America. This is America. The people who live in this state have billions of dollars, while simultaneously people living in what looks like refugee camps. But hey, we have a rip-roaring economy. That economy is rip-roaring, and poverty and income and all that stuff is just fucking spectacular right now. And under all of that, giving himself magnificently amounts of money, giving people who are like him of his class magnificent amounts of money, being completely obsequious to Benjamin Netanyahu and the wants of Israel. And now, when he had the opportunity to do something tepid for people who backed him, and yeah, some people who didn't, but definitely people who backed him, he cancels it. He fucks you over. Let's take a look at this article real quick. Trump cancels pay raise for almost 2 million federal workers. In light of our nation's fiscal situation, federal employees' pay must be performance-based, the president wrote in Thursday's letter to congressional leaders. Listen to what he uses to justify this. Because understand, he's given this massive tax cut, trillions. He's put that burden on us, meaning the people who aren't of his class. We would have to pay that back. And in this case, oh, and by the way, the tax cuts did exactly what I said they were going to do. They went into the pockets of the people who had them. Research and analysis on the after effects, or what happened with those tax cuts, shows that they put them in their pocket or they pushed them in to buy back stocks. The workers themselves got little to nothing of that money. And with the exception of like an immediate boost or immediate like tiny bump, it was fleeting. The workers themselves got squat. The people who are of Trump's class got it all. Got it all. And in the context of that, we have this. We must maintain efforts to put our nation on a fiscally sustainable course, and federal agency budgets cannot sustain such increases, the president wrote in a letter to Congress. Think about that! The president of the United States says we must give a $1 trillion tax. We must give trillions of dollars to the top 1%. But we can't afford to give a modest raise to federal workers. These things are issues of class. President of the United States that you voted for is fucking you over royally. He's fucking you over royally. Under Trump's policy, roughly 1.8 million people would get an automatic pay boost next year, including Under Trump's policy, roughly 1.8 million people wouldn't get a pay with an automatic pay boost next year, including Border Patrol ICE agents. That stance put vulnerable GOP lawmakers representing Northern Virginia, home of tens of thousands of federal workers, in particular in the political crosshairs. And it sets up an all but certain funding fight with Congress next month as party leaders attempt to reach a sweeping agreement to keep the government open before the start of the next fiscal year on October 1st. Representative Barbara Comstock, an endangered GOP incumbent in House, said she would work to reverse the pay freeze. I bet you will. We cannot balance the budget on the backs of our federal employees, and I will work with my House and Senate colleagues to keep the pay increase in our appropriations measures that we vote on in September, Comstock wrote in a sharply worded statement. Our office opposes this, and we will work with other offices next week on the issue. Scott Taylor, Republican from Virginia, who is also facing a tough re-election, in Twitter. The Senate has already backed a 1.9% pay rise for civilian federal employees this year, but House Republicans have approved their own spending bill that endorses the White House pay freeze. We don't want to pay them people nothing. Thanks for the tax cuts. But no, we don't want to give you a decent wage. I'm curious to see how this turns out. I really am. Because you're going into an election campaign. You have corporate Democrats, and you have Republicans who know that people like pay raises. The reason why they give tax cuts is because they like more money into their account. Even if you can't spend it, there's a psychological effect of knowing that it's there, you have it at your disposal. The catch is, though, and the reality of it is, that regardless of the politics, at the bare bones of it, that politics is some degree of distillation, or it's like betting on a derivative. Yeah. I like that. It's like betting on a derivative to some degree. It's like, yeah, the politician is out there, but the politician is responding to certain things that are going to take place in real time for real human beings. And in the real human being world, not the political space, those people are already at the bottom margins of society trying to make ends meet. Pay matters. And that bump, by the way, just gets dumped directly into the economy itself. So if you're talking about undercutting the economy or not necessarily allowing this kind of extra bump into it, this is one of those things. The interesting point to this is right here. Oh, by the way, Congress got a pay rise. Last year, Congress and the White House agreed to pay rises of 1.4% for federal civilian workers. Right, I read that part. Under Obama administration, civilian workers were subjected to multiple years of pay freezes as the federal government weathered a recession. Trump's move is unexpected, though, in a soaring economy that surged 4.2% last quarter. And mind you, those gains, even under Obama, 95% of that wealth went to the top 1%, meaning they've been able to expropriate all of this wealth. And in the tepid give back, Trump says no. Trump says no. That's amazing. That's completely amazing. Fuck the poor. Fuck the poor. What I would wish is that we get to a point of recognizing that the rich work in their best interest. And we need to start doing the same. There's something to be said for working in collective self-interest, meaning all of us working together in order to kind of reshape the way we organize ourselves and the policies that are being espoused from the governmental apparatus itself. We can do it. It's choice. You can have any role you want, providing you're willing to deal with the consequences of that arrangement. Are you okay with the way that we've arranged ourselves? I've done a story that showed that half of the world has lost, or half of the species on the planet has gone extinct in the last 40 years. That's not an act of God, that's an act of culture. I'm saying it needs to some degree change. Otherwise, we're headed for terrors. I would argue that we're already in a situation of terrors. We've just become so accustomed to them. Terrors, not terrorists. Let's say horrors, but I guess you can end up in the same weird box. All right, let's see. Tell me you didn't say tepid. I'll use tepid all the time. Luke about to flip out, Hulk out. What do you mean tepid? Just rip your shirt off. How dare you call me tepid, sir? It's fucking funny. Trudy, dang, munchies. Gotta find something. You're always supposed to have something near, Trudy. You're always supposed to have something near, or you just turn around and pull it back. That's how that's supposed to work. You know what? I should have did a 420. A 420 would have been awesome. The problem is, if you're doing a 2-hour show, unless you're just starting off with the 420, by the time you get to the end of the 2-hour show, at that point, it's not for anything. You're just talking. Burnman, Jamarl, on the other hand, maybe a threat, still criminally underviewed channel. Happy birthday. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it, Burnman. Thank you. All right. Show us your trans porn, Jamal. I don't know what trans porn is. I don't know what trans porn is. All right, I'm gonna end this. I'm fading. And Clyde, thanks, Clyde. My wife hit me up. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Look, man. I just want to tell. I really do. Clyde, happy birthday, man. Big Apple. The first step to enforcing populist will is to quit giving these people money to invest as much as possible. That I agree with you, Guard. They can't do what they do if you're not giving them money to do it. Look, let me say this. I want to thank all of you for watching the show, enjoying the show. You guys let me do this show. So it feels like it's a small token of thank you to give either a show, either a few times a week or a few times a month, and a t-shirt once a month. I just thank you. I appreciate it, guys. I really do. So, I don't think there's anything else to say. Well, the way we're going to do this going forward is this show is probably going to take place once a week. And these are going to be given to wherever that site and repository is for people to get access for it and assist them with the content. There's also going to be a t-shirt drawing once a month in addition. Thank you, guys. Really. So I'm going to say it here. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks, everyone. And you all have a good one. And we are...